Welcome to this episode of Thank God You're Not My Child. Yes, it is a funny comedy podcast about kids and parenting problems and just things that go on in the world. And remember, we don't have any judgment here. So keep it to yourself if you have that judgment shit. Okie dokie. Okay, we're going to start with, I guess I need to clarify something because I always grew up thinking punishments were one thing, and the definition of punishment isn't really what I mean, the actual definition when I say punishment. It's more discipline, because the definition of discipline is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of conduct. You know, because to live in this world, you have to have rules. We have to have rules, or else it would turn into Purge, which, if you don't know what Purge is, just search Purge. It's actually a pretty good horror movie. But we have to teach our kids, no matter who they are, we have to discipline them. And there's different ways to discipline, and each one of us are going to have our own ways. Remember, parenting, there's so many different types of parenting, so it's hard to judge right or wrong. There's definitely wrong parenting, you know, beating your kids all the time, the broken arms, all of those things you hear. That's not discipline. That's abuse. I'm talking about discipline like, when you make threats to your child, and yes, they're threats. If you say, if you don't eat your dinner, you're not going to dessert. Well, if that's what you say, you need to carry it out. Because if they don't eat their dinner and you give them a dessert, what's it teaching them? And then they just start, it's empty threats. And an empty threat is one of the worst things you can have with your kids. So I always say, be careful what you threat. And I have a good story about my past with my son. Today's his birthday. This episode drops on his 35th birthday. And around, 94, probably around 1994 or so, he was 6 or so. I'm not good at math, so don't, he's probably around 6. I probably should have figured that out, but we didn't go out to eat and stuff a lot because I wanted it to be a treat for them, not something we did all the time. And so going to the movie was really big. So, we would save some money and make plans, and it was a big thing for us to go to a movie. Big treat. And I don't even remember what he was doing to mess up. That's how long ago it was. But unbeknownst to me, I had to learn the hard way because I threatened that none of us are going to go to this movie. I don't remember what he was doing. So I remember missing the movie because that's when I learned if I threaten, I have to carry it through. I do remember the movie was Pagemaster. Do you remember the movie Pagemaster? It's still a good one. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It is really good. It's a movie that turns into a cartoon. Macaulay Culkin as the kid, and it turns into a cartoon, into a whole wizard world. It is so good. I've watched it over the years with daycare too on special moments. So it's a good show, but it came out in 94, maybe around Thanksgiving. And we were going to go on a special trip to see Pagemaster to the movie. And he was acting up, and I threatened that none of us would go to the movies if he didn't stop. And guess what? He didn't stop. So that was the time I realized real quick that if you threaten, you have to carry out. So the punishment, I just did it again. The reaction to my threat, to discipline, I had to carry through with that threat. So none of us got to see Pagemaster. In fact, we didn't even go see it at the movies. I know. I was one of those moms. If I threaten, I learned that I need to really carry through. And that's how your kids learn. And they're going to learn from a small age. And I don't want any of that. They're only one. I have heard parents over the years threaten, I'm going to whoop you if you get that down again. I'm going to, you're going to bed early if you don't do this. And if you don't carry out when you threaten something like that, they're just going to keep misbehaving and keep doing it because you're not going to do anything anyway. So hopefully that makes sense. So we're talking about discipline. And your discipline might be a whooping. It might be taking something away. It might, we all have different, I'm going to call it punishments because that's just how I see it. The consequences to your behavior. That's how I see it. So, yeah. So, that's one thing I've worked with most parents over the years at daycare is if you threaten something, you need to carry it out because that's part of how a kid learns. And like if you are taking your 3-year-old into a store and they want a toy, and it's okay that you want to get them a toy, but you tell them if they misbehave, they're not getting a toy, and then they get in there, start screaming for a toy, which is misbehaving, and they're old enough to know better. Don't get the damn toy. They don't need it. You don't need that to survive. You're not hurting them to tell them no, but if you said, if you misbehave in this store, you're not getting a toy. And then you get them the toy when they show their ass? Who's the problem here? Who's the problem? Think about it. I mean, fuck that. And I've seen that in the store. I see it in the store all the time. And I would like to, of course, thank God they're not my child, and that's where it came from, is that if I see someone I don't even know go, if you keep crying, you're not getting a toy. And then I hear them crying for 10 minutes in the store, and then I see them checking out, and guess who's getting a toy? Well, the kid's not the problem. The parent's the problem. Just saying it, just here to say it. We don't beat around the bush here. We just go full force into that burning bush, and you need to start correcting crap you have, or you're going to have kids that think they have no consequences when they're teenagers. I just watched a show on kids that murder, and I know that's a big jump from throwing a fit and not getting a toy, but where do you think these kids learn it from? These kids, year after year not having any discipline, they think they can do what they want. And then some kids are so addicted to their telephone or their Xbox or something that reality slips away. And it's very easy to do. You can do that reading a book. Reality can slip away. That's why you read a book. That's why you like reading a book, because you're in a different world. That's going back to PageMaster. That's what it's about. Reading is really good for you because you get into a different world. And when you get into a different world, that's where the imagination can come. So I'm not saying games on your phone or this stuff or games are bad. That's not. But that might be the consequence to the threats you have with your child. If your child isn't behaving, the telephone away might be the thing. Or the Xbox, unhooked for a day might be a thing. I never did month-long grounds and stuff. Depending on the age, it might just be a day without something. When they got to be older, it might be a week without the car, something like that, because there had to be discipline at some time. And it goes back to when they get older. If they have no discipline, these are the ones the adults that are showing their ass in the store, screaming at people and trying to throw a fit to get what they want. Those were probably the 3, 4, 5, 8-year-olds throwing a stupid ass fit to get what they want with their parents, and it was never corrected. So I do feel like I'm kind of on my soapbox today. Hopefully you guys agree with it. I've also seen some funny stories. Life with kids can be funny. So make it funny. Play the hide and seek with your kid. Enjoy time with your kid. Read books with your kid. Just make sure your kid is disciplined and understands how to live in this world. You don't walk up and hit strangers. There's just certain things you don't do. And I've seen all of this in the stores because now I travel all around Texas and Oklahoma. My boyfriend's a lawyer, and we have different courts that he has to do work in. And so I drive him around. And so I go in many, many stores, and I see many, many, many things that I just sit back and what is this world coming to? You've all seen, I'm hoping you've all seen on TikTok, maybe YouTube too, the girl upset that She wanted to go back to the store because Mama only spent $3,000 on her school clothes and she needed more. I mean, $3,000? That's a damn used car. And you've got a daughter that wants more than... First of all, I don't think anybody needs $3,000 of school clothes, but that's tit for tat. If you got the money, do it to it. But Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy on us that are training these kids to come up to think that they don't have to work for what they get. They don't have to talk nice to people. They don't have to behave. That obey is not a bad word. Obey your parents is not a bad word. Let's say that again. Obey is not a bad word. And that's just how it is. That's just how it is. I want to move on to a listener's story, and it's a funny one. That first segment was kind of a slap on the wrist if you're fucking your kid's life up. Don't fuck your kid's life up to be their friend. Remember, you can be your friend, but you're still the parent number one. So anyway, the listener's story is from Samantha. Yes, I have a cat, Samantha, so this one really drew my attention. But it is such a funny one. She was watching her grandkids, and she said they wanted to read books, so we read. And you know, if you've ever had your grandkids get in your lap to read books, or your kids, you can read a book and another book and another book and another book and another book, and you eventually get you get kind of brain tired from reading these kids' books. So after, like she said, it was like almost an hour of reading books that she needed a break. So she got up to do some things and let the girls watch a little TV. And so about 30 minutes later, she sat down and realized they're watching TV so nice and this show's not over yet, so I'm going to read a little of my book. And so she said one of her granddaughters, she was 4, was looking at her. Now 4, this is kind of funny if you think about it, was looking at her and just kept looking at her and staring, and almost like in wonder. And she said, what's up? Do you need something? And she goes, well, what are you doing? And she goes, well, I'm reading my book. She goes, but there's no words coming out. The 4-year-old has not been taught reading in silence, which is a hard thing to tell a kid that's not reading yet. If you don't see your parents reading all the time to know they're reading, or somebody, you're not going to, that reading silently is a hard thing to learn sometimes. But she said she just giggled, and then she decided to read a little of the words on the page to her granddaughter, the 4-year-old that wanted to. And she said after about 3 minutes, she goes, well, there's no pictures, and I don't really like this book. So, yeah, see, that was a good reader story. A funny, because to lighten up the mood a little from all the discipline talk. So, yeah, thank you, Samantha, for sending that in. I read to my granddaughters anytime I can with them because they love reading. I bet they have over 400 kids' books. And I haven't read them all, but hopefully I will get to. So, yeah, thank you, Samantha. And, guys, get those books open. Read in front of your kids. I don't care what it is. Read in front of your kids. Let your kids, I've even been known to let my kids, read in silent and kind of teach the preschool how to look at the books. And even if you can't read the words, you can look at the pictures and you can make your own thoughts up about what's happening. It's picture reading. It's a good learning tool. So let's get those books out. Let those kids, I don't know, read in the bed at night. You read to them, but then let them read a book for a little while on their own. So it's all a learning thing. And Samantha, thank you. Oh, and Samantha was from Idaho. I have someone in Idaho listening to the podcast. I've never been to Idaho, but Samantha, maybe I'll have to come up there one day. Yep. Okay, thank you for listening. Thank you, Samantha. Okay, a story from my daycare past. And it's not from a kid's story. It's a parent story. Yes, if you've ever been a teacher or daycare provider or worked at a daycare, you understand that some of your biggest problems are going to come from the parents, not the kids. Kids, that's my passion. If the kids could just have no parents, that would be okay. Okay, just laugh. But normally it was the parents. And the theory of discipline and paying your daycare payment and bringing the diapers, and that discipline still has to be met with an adult too. And I had rules, and you sign the contract, so that's what's going to happen. But I had a family that was going through a rough time, and they came and talked to me about payment, and we're going to work through it, because I understand. I've been there, done that. We all have rough times with money. And so I told this mother, yes, if you need to wait a week to pay, that is fine. I mean, I'd had her trail for a while. We'll work through it. Well, then Friday comes, and I asked her if she had the payment for the week that just happened, which I always made them pay for the week upcoming. And she said, well, I'll have it next Friday. Well, okay. I understand, because if it comes to paying your daycare, I know your kids are important, but if you have to have your house and heating on and stuff, I get it. Been there, done that. So this went on for a month, and I had to give her a threat, no ultimatum, that she either needed it, he couldn't come back until she paid in full. And a lesson learned by me, she withdrew him instead of paying, and then went to a friend. And I had friends that I knew did daycare. We were all different. Everybody did it different. I might not have been the place for everybody. And, I could only had 10 kids. So, there's a lot more kids in the small town I was in. So I don't mind them going to a friend. But I did let the friend know, we had a closed daycare page, that daycare providers could be on, that, well, she still owes me $400. So just know, don't let her not pay, because she's done it to me. So there's a history. And, it was like 5 days later, because this friend of mine, which I didn't ask her to do anything, said, he can start, but you need to pay Donna off first. So she had to take care of her kid that week, because this other daycare provider knew she owed me. So she wouldn't take him until she paid me. So then she went to another one, and they backed this one up, so she had to come pay me the $400 she paid before any of the ones in the area would pay, because they all know she stiffed me. That's discipline from a parent. Those daycare hoppers, and if you've had a daycare, you know those daycare hoppers. It's very important to understand that there's consequences to your actions, and there's discipline. Pay your daycare. You have a kid, you pay your daycare. So that wasn't even a kid's story. But you know what? Pretty sure this mom probably didn't have any consequences growing up and thought she could go without paying. And she didn't think she would ever have to, see me again, because, you can't really make somebody pay, but she couldn't get childcare in the town because she still owed me, and they knew it. So that's a little lesson on adult discipline. We all need discipline. Remember, we all need discipline. I need discipline because I played roller derby and broke my ankle in, I think, March, and it's all good now, and I'm still struggling with the fear of getting back on the skates, but I have to be disciplined to do something like that. So discipline isn't always a bad thing. Discipline is a good thing. And I'm doing this early in the morning, or at least before I should be drinking, so I guess I'm going to have to wait for that margarita till tonight. But if anybody wants to DM me margarita money, I'll take it. I'd also like to have some more reader story or listener stories. So that email will be on the description of this, justbkdonna@yahoo.com. And remember, if you listen to it, give me a 5-star, because I'm waiting for 5 stars. This is just something I do on the side. It's a hobby, so I'd love to know if you like it, if you have any things that I need to do different, or any stories you want me to think about and talk about. Let me know. Always here. And remember, until next time, thank God you're not my child.